Vivid verses.
The October sun had already dipped below the tree line when Owen Hartfield pulled his Civic into the driveway of their modest two-story in Clearwater Heights. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt deliberate, like everyone had retreated behind their matching vinyl siding to avoid acknowledging one another. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, briefcase resting on the passenger's seat, watching the warm light from the kitchen window spill across the lawn. Something had shifted. He'd felt it for the past week, maybe longer. Nothing overt. Rachel hadn't been cold or distant in any obvious way. But there were tells. The way she'd been overly solicitous at breakfast, asking about his day before he'd even had coffee. The sudden interest in couples podcasts she'd mentioned casually, as if they'd been part of her routine forever. The careful orchestration of her schedule, making sure she was home when he arrived, which hadn't been the norm in months. Owen had learned long ago that people telegraph their intentions if you know what to watch for. Rachel was watching him too closely, speaking too carefully. She was preparing for something. He gathered his things and walked to the front door. The October air carried that particular crispness that meant winter wasn't far off. The smell of wood smoke from someone's fireplace, the faint decay of leaves beginning their transformation. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, taking one more breath of the cooling evening, then stepped inside. "Hey," Rachel called from the kitchen. "You're right on time." That was the first confirmation. She'd been tracking his arrival. Traffic was light, he said, setting his briefcase by the stairs. He loosened his tie as he walked through the living room, noting the particular tidiness of the space. The throw pillows were arranged with precision. No coffee mugs on the side table. Even the stack of her design magazines had been squared off. Rachel stood by the counter, her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look both casual and considered. She wore jeans and a cream sweater, comfortable, but the kind of comfortable that required thought. 2 wine glasses sat on the counter already filled. Red, not white. The bottles sat beside them. A Thistlewood Vineyards label he didn't recognize. "I thought we could have a glass before dinner," she said, sliding one toward him. "It's been a long week." Owen accepted the glass, studying her face. Rachel had always been attractive in an understated way. Fine features, intelligent eyes, a smile that could disarm when she deployed it strategically. Right now, that smile was present but strained, like she was holding it in place through sheer determination. "Sounds good," he said. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Just thought it would be nice." He took a sip. The wine was decent, better than what they usually kept around. Another data point. Rachel moved to the dining table, and Owen followed. She'd set out small plates with cheese and crackers, another unusual touch. They sat across from each other, and he watched her take a longer drink from her glass than she normally would. So, she began then stopped. Her fingers traced the stem of her wine glass. "I wanted to talk to you about something." There it was. Owen leaned back slightly, keeping his posture open but not eager. "Okay." She took another breath, and he could see her running through her prepared script, trying to find the entry point she'd rehearsed. "I've been thinking a lot lately about us, about our relationship, and where we are." He said nothing, just maintained eye contact. Let her fill the silence. "We've been together for 6 years, married for 4, and I think we've built something really solid, something strong." She was choosing her words with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. "But I've been reading and listening to some things lately, and I'm wondering if maybe we've gotten too comfortable, too routine." Owen sipped his wine. The vintage had notes of blackberry and something earthier, tobacco, maybe. He let the flavor settle before responding. "Routine isn't necessarily bad." No, of course not," Rachel said quickly. "That's not what I mean. I think there's a difference between stable and stagnant, and I'm worried we might be leaning toward the latter." He could see where this was heading now, the architecture of her argument taking shape. She was building a framework, establishing premises that would lead to an inevitable conclusion. It was actually fairly elegant in its way. "What would you suggest?" he asked. Rachel's shoulders dropped slightly, relief that he was engaging, not shutting down. "I think we should consider expanding our boundaries a little, exploring what else might be out there, while still maintaining what we have here." There it was, not stated directly yet, but close enough. Owen set his wine glass down carefully, buying himself a moment. His mind was already running calculations, processing implications. "You want to open the relationship?" Rachel blinked, momentarily thrown by his directness. "Ah, yes. I think it could be really healthy for us. There are couples who do this and actually end up stronger because of it. It removes the pressure of one person having to be everything for the other." "Who would you want to see?" The question clearly caught her off guard. Her prepared talking points hadn't accounted for him moving this quickly past the theoretical stage. "I don't have anyone specific in mind," she said, but her eyes flickered to the left for just a fraction of a second. "Tell number 4 or 5. He'd lost count. This isn't about that. It's about the principle of—" "Rachel." His voice was gentle but firm. "Who is he?" She froze, wine glass halfway to her lips. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she set the glass down with excessive care. "There's someone at work," she admitted quietly. "Brandon. He's in marketing. We've just been talking, nothing has happened, but there's something there. And I don't want to act on it without being honest with you first." Of course, she has someone in mind, Owen thought. They always do. It was one of the fundamental patterns he'd observed over the years, through friends' relationships, through countless stories online, through the predictable arc of human behavior. When someone proposed opening a relationship after years of monogamy, it was rarely an abstract philosophical exercise. There was usually a specific gravitational pull already in effect. The interesting part wasn't that she'd found someone attractive. That was human nature. The interesting part was that she'd convinced herself this was about growing together, rather than about wanting to sleep with Brandon for marketing while keeping Owen as the stable foundation. "Okay," he said. Rachel stared at him. "Okay. Yes. If that's what you want to explore, we can open the relationship." She blinked several times in rapid succession. This clearly wasn't the response she'd prepared for. He could see her mental gears turning, trying to figure out if this was a trap, if he was being sarcastic, if she should push back against how easy this had been. You're okay with this?" "I'm agreeing to your request," Owen said evenly. "You made it clear this is important to you. We can try it." "I didn't think you'd—" She trailed off, regrouping. "This is really mature of you. I think this could be really good for us, Owen. A lot of couples find that this actually strengthens their connection because—" "What are the parameters?" he interrupted. "Parameters? Ground rules. Are we telling each other about other partners? Are certain days off limits? Are there venues or locations that should remain exclusive to us?" Rachel seemed to be trying to catch up with the pace of his acceptance. I think we should be honest with each other. No sneaking around. And maybe we keep Wednesdays and weekends mostly for us? Unless something special comes up. Mostly. Well, like, if there's a special event or something, we should have flexibility." She's already planning specific scenarios with Brandon, Owen observed clinically. Probably a concert or dinner she knows he's interested in. "Fine," he said. "Anything else?" "I think we should check in regularly. Make sure we're both still comfortable." "Agreed." "Is that everything?" Rachel was looking at him like he'd suddenly started speaking a different language. "You're really okay with this?" "I've already said yes." Owen stood, picking up his wine glass. "I'm going to head upstairs and change. Did you want to order something for dinner? Or are we cooking?" I was going to make that pasta you like. The one with the cherry tomatoes." "Sound good. I'll be down in 20. He left her sitting at the table, still trying to process how differently this conversation had gone from whatever she'd imagined. Upstairs, Owen closed the bedroom door behind him and stood in the dimming light from the window. He could hear Rachel moving around in the kitchen below, the familiar sounds of drawers opening, water running. He pulled out his phone and opened a new note. October 17th, 6:47 p.m. Rachel requests open relationship. Has someone specific in mind. Brandon, marketing, agreement reached. New parameters. Honesty required. Wednesdays and most weekends reserved for primary relationship. Then he added one more line. Marriage effectively over. Proceeding as single person while maintaining legal status temporarily. The thought arrived with the cold clarity of mathematical proof. He'd seen this pattern before, could trace the probability tree from this point forward. Once someone in a committed relationship asked for this, not from a place of mutual exploration, but from wanting a specific external person, the relationship was already done. The asking was just the formality before the inevitable. Rachel had made her choice. She'd chosen the thrill of Brandon from marketing over the stability of what they'd built. That was her prerogative. But Owen wasn't going to play the role of the loyal husband waiting at home while she explored her options. If they were open, they were open. He changed out of his work clothes methodically, hanging the suit, putting the shirt in the hamper. He pulled on jeans and a comfortable Henley, then stood in front of the mirror for a moment. Owen had always been relatively fit, but he'd let things slide over the past year. Nothing dramatic, just the slow accumulation of comfortable dinners and skipped gym sessions. He was 32, still had his hair, stood just under 6 feet. Not remarkable, but not invisible either. That would need a change. If he was going to do this, he was going to do it properly, not out of spite. Spite was emotional, reactive, inefficient. But if the parameters of his life had suddenly shifted, he needed to optimize for the new reality. He pulled out his laptop and opened a new document, then began typing. Immediate priorities. 1. Physical improvement. Reinstate gym routine. Refine diet. 2. Social network expansion. Reconnect with neglected friendships. 3. Financial audit. Understand full picture of assets. Begin consultation with attorney. 4. Emotional boundaries. Maintain distance. Avoid couple patterns. He stared at the last item for a moment, then added, 5. Dating. Begin after 1 week buffer. It felt calculated, seeing it written out like that. But everything was calculation when you stripped away the emotion. Rachel had done her own calculation and decided the expected value of Brandon from marketing exceeded the value of their current arrangement. Owen was simply responding with equal rationality. A knock on the door interrupted his planning. Dinner's almost ready, Rachel called through the wood. Be right down. He saved the document, encrypted the file out of habit, and headed downstairs. They ate dinner with unusual politeness, like diplomats from nations with complicated treaties. Rachel seemed energized, relieved, talking about her day with more animation than she had in weeks. Owen listened, responded appropriately, but kept a part of his mind separate, observing. She'd expected resistance, probably drama. The fact that he'd given her what she wanted so easily had created cognitive dissonance. She was interpreting his calm as maturity, as security in their relationship. She thought his easy agreement meant he wasn't worried, that he trusted they'd remain the primary focus for each other. She'd realize her mistake eventually. I was thinking I might go out tomorrow night, Rachel said, twirling pasta on her fork. Brandon mentioned there's a new wine bar downtown. That place Telegraph and Vine. I thought I might check it out. Sounds nice, Owen said. I'll probably hit the gym after work. The gym? Rachel looked up. You haven't been in a while. Seems like a good time to get back into it. She smiled, and he could see her fitting this in her narrative. He's taking care of himself because he feels secure. He's not threatened. They finished dinner, cleaned up together with practiced efficiency, then migrated to the living room. Rachel curled up on the couch with her laptop, ostensibly working on a project, but periodically typing messages Owen suspected weren't work-related. He sat in the armchair with a book, reading the same page 3 times while his mind worked through logistics. Around 10, Rachel stretched and stood. "I'm exhausted. Coming to bed. I'll be up in a bit. Want to finish this chapter." She kissed the top of his head as she passed, a gesture of affection or perhaps relief, then headed upstairs. Owen sat in the quiet living room for another hour, not reading, just thinking. Outside, the neighborhood had gone fully dark except for the occasional porch light. A car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating the front window, then fading. He thought about the trajectory of their relationship. They met through mutual friends at a barbecue 6 years ago. Rachel had been funny, sharp, interested in his work in data analytics. They dated for 2 years before moving in together, gotten married in a small ceremony with 40 guests. It had been good, he thought. Not passionate in the consuming way of new love, but solid. Comfortable. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe comfortable wasn't enough for everyone. Or maybe Brandon for marketing was just exciting because he was new. Owen realized he felt remarkably little about the whole situation. No rage, no devastation, no desperate need to fight for what they had. Just a cool assessment that this chapter was closing and a new one was beginning. He'd loved Rachel, in his way. Probably still did, in some residual sense. But love wasn't enough to override reality, and the reality was clear. She'd already left the marriage emotionally. This open relationship was just the legal structure that would delay the inevitable paperwork. Finally, he turned off the lights and headed upstairs. Rachel was already asleep, or pretending to be. Owen changed in the dark, slipped into bed, and lay staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he'd start the gym routine. This weekend, he'd reach out to some old friends. 1 week from now, he'd reactivate his dormant profile on Cascade, the dating app he deleted 3 years ago. The plan was simple. The execution would require discipline. But discipline, Owen reflected as sleep finally began to pull him under, had always been his greatest strength. The week unfolded with unexpected smoothness. Rachel went out Thursday night to Telegraph and Vine. She came home 11:30, flushed and happy, and told Owen about the wine selection and the small plates they tried. She didn't mention Brandon by name, but he was present in every sentence like a ghost. Owen had spent the evening at Titan Fitness, the 24-hour gym 3 miles from their house. He'd signed up for a year membership and worked with one of the trainers to establish a routine. Full body, 3 days a week to start, with cardio on alternate days. Friday, Rachel worked late, or said she did. Owen ordered Thai food from that place on Morrison Street, ate while reading a book on behavioral economics he'd been meaning to get to, then went to bed at a reasonable hour. Saturday morning, he woke at 6 and went running. The autumn air was sharp in his lungs, perfect for clearing his head. He ran 4 miles, came back sweating and energized. Rachel was still asleep. He showered, made coffee, then spent the morning organizing their financial documents. This was the meticulous part, the groundwork that would matter later. He pulled tax returns, bank statements, investment accounts, the mortgage paperwork. He created spreadsheets, documented everything. They had some joint savings, the house they bought 2 years ago, Rachel's 401k, and his IRA. No kids, thankfully, which simplified things considerably. Around noon, Rachel emerged, groggy and surprised to find him surrounded by papers at the dining table. "What's all this?" she asked, pouring coffee. "Just organizing. Figured it was overdue." She didn't press, just took her coffee back upstairs. Later, she mentioned she was meeting some girlfriends for lunch. Owen suspected at least one of those friends was male and worked in marketing, but it didn't matter. Sunday, he deep cleaned the house. Not because it needed it particularly, but because the physical activity felt productive, purposeful. Rachel watched him with increasing confusion as he scrubbed the bathroom tile and reorganized the garage. "You're being weird," she finally said. "Weird how?" "I don't know. Different. You're not upset about us trying this new thing. You asked if we could open the relationship. I agreed. Why would I be upset? I just thought. I don't know. I thought there'd be more discussion." Owen straightened from where he'd been sorting through boxes of old electronics. "Did you want more discussion? We can talk about it if something's bothering you." "No, nothing's bothering me. I just want to make sure you're really okay." "I'm fine, Rachel." She studied him for another moment, then shook her head and wandered back inside. That evening, she ordered them pizza from Sal's Kitchen, and they ate it while watching a documentary about financial fraud. Owen found it grimly amusing. The ways people convinced themselves their deceptions were justified, the inevitable collapse when reality finally caught up. Monday through Wednesday passed in similar fashion. Owen maintained his gym routine, worked his usual hours at Vance Analytics downtown, came home and made dinner or ate whatever Rachel had prepared. She went out Tuesday night, Brandon again, though she still didn't mention him by name, and came back glowing. Owen felt nothing about it. That was the strangest part. He'd expected anger or jealousy or hurt, some emotional response. Instead, there was just the cool observation that Rachel was behaving exactly as predicted. Wednesday night, she made a point of being home, cooking an elaborate dinner with herb-crusted salmon and roasted vegetables. It was their reserved night, after all. She was following the rules she'd established. "This is nice," she said over dinner. "I missed us. We saw each other this morning," Owen pointed out. "You know what I mean. Missed this. Just the two of us focusing on each other." He nodded, but didn't elaborate. The conversation felt forced, like they were both performing roles in a play neither had fully memorized. That night, Rachel initiated sex for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. Owen went through the motions, and she seemed satisfied, curling up against him afterward with a contented sigh. "I love you," she murmured. "Love you too," he replied automatically, but the words felt hollow, like coins dropped in an empty well. Thursday morning, Owen reactivated his Cascade profile during his lunch break. He sat in his usual spot at Brewpoint Coffee, the place near his office that made decent pour-overs and didn't play music too loudly. His laptop was open in front of him, ostensibly reviewing quarterly reports, but instead he was logged into the dating app he'd sworn off 3 years ago. His old profile was mostly intact, just dormant. He updated his photos, added a recent one from a work conference where he looked competent in a suit, another from a hiking trip last year where he looked outdoorsy and approachable. He rewrote his bio to be concise and direct. Data analyst, reader, runner, looking for someone who can discuss anything from behavioral economics to the best pizza in town. Separated but not yet divorced. If that's an issue, I understand. The last line was important. Honesty about his situation would filter out people who weren't interested, save everyone time. He set his parameters. Women 27 to 38, within 30 miles, interested in something ranging from casual to serious. Then he activated the profile and closed the app. His phone buzzed almost immediately. "You have 3 new likes." Owen silenced the notifications and went back to his actual work. He'd check it later. By the time he finished his coffee an hour later, he had 15 likes and 3 messages. He scrolled through them briefly. The messages were standard. "Hey, love your profile. What kind of books do you read?" He responded to 2 of them with something equally casual, then put his phone away and headed back to the office. That evening, he went to the gym as usual. He was starting to see small changes already. His clothes fitting slightly better, his energy levels up. The trainer, a guy named Carlos who looked like he could bench press a sedan, had been pushing him hard but fairly. "You've got good discipline," Carlos observed as Owen finished his third set of rows. Most people start strong, then fade by week 2. Discipline is just math, Owen replied. You calculate the desired outcome and execute the steps to get there. Carlos laughed. If only everyone saw it that way. When Owen got home around 8, Rachel was already there, cooking something that smelled like garlic and butter. She seemed cheerful, humming along to something playing on her phone. How was your day? She asked. Productive. Yours? Really good. We landed that account with Hartman Industries I've been working on. Congratulations. They ate dinner, and Rachel talked about her work with genuine enthusiasm. Owen listened, asked appropriate questions, but maintained that internal distance he'd established. She was his roommate now, essentially, someone he shared space with, had cordial interactions with, but no longer had a deeper connection to. His phone buzzed several times during dinner. Rachel glanced at it. Popular tonight, she commented lightly. Work stuff, he said, which wasn't technically a lie. Cascade was work of a sort. Later, after Rachel had gone to bed, Owen sat in the living room and properly reviewed his app activity. 27 likes now. 7 messages. He scrolled through the profiles, applied his analytical framework. 3 were immediate rejections. Nothing in common. Didn't seem worth the time investment. 2 were possibles. 2 were genuinely interesting. One was a woman named Ainsley, 29, who worked in urban planning and whose profile showed her rock climbing and attending what looked like a comedy show. Her bio was witty without trying too hard. Here to find someone who can keep up on a hike and doesn't think medium rare is a personality trait. The other was Diana, 33, a veterinarian whose photos showed her with various animals and looking competent in scrubs. Prefer the company of animals, but willing to give humans another shot. Must tolerate cat hair and occasional 3 a.m. emergency calls. He messaged both, something more substantive than hey. To Ainsley, your profile mentioned you're in urban planning. Any thoughts on Clearwater Heights' recent zoning changes? I live there, and the whole thing seems like a disaster waiting to happen. To Diana, vet work at 3 a.m. sounds intense. What's the most unusual animal you've treated? He sent the messages, then put his phone on the charger and headed upstairs. Rachel was asleep, taking up most of the bed in that sprawling way she did. Owen carefully claimed his side, lying in the dark, thinking about how strange it was that they'd shared this bed for years, and now it felt like sleeping next to a stranger. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He checked it. Ainsley had responded, "Oh God, don't get me started on those zoning changes. I wrote a whole breakdown on my neighborhood forum. Short version. They're prioritizing developer profits over infrastructure capacity, and we're all going to regret it in 5 years. Long version available upon request." Owen smiled and typed back, "Long version requested." I like people who have strong opinions backed by actual data. They messaged back and forth for another 20 minutes, a rapid-fire exchange about urban development, bad city planning, and the comedy of local government. She was sharp, funny, didn't pull punches. Finally, she sent, "I should sleep. Early meeting tomorrow. But this was fun. Want to continue this over coffee sometime?" Owen hesitated for exactly 3 seconds, then replied, "Yes. When works for you?" "Saturday afternoon? There's a place called Redwood Grounds on 7th that makes excellent lattes. Saturday at 2? Perfect. See you then." Owen set his phone down, feeling something he hadn't felt in weeks. Anticipation. Not nervousness, just the pleasant sense of forward momentum. Beside him, Rachel stirred in her sleep, but didn't wake. Friday night, Rachel went out with Brandon again. She'd stopped pretending these outings were ambiguous. She told Owen directly now that she was seeing him, that they were going to a late movie. "Don't wait up," she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. She dressed carefully, dark jeans, a fitted green top that Owen remembered buying her for her birthday last year. I might be late. Have fun, Owen said from the couch. She paused at the door, looking back at him. You really okay? I'm fine, Rachel. She lingered another moment, then left. Owen waited until he heard her car pull away, then opened his laptop. Diana had messaged him earlier suggesting they talk on the phone rather than text, and he'd agreed. At 8, his phone rang. Hello, Owen. It's Diana. Her voice was warm, confident. They talked for nearly 2 hours about her work, about the strangeness of dating after years away from it. She was divorced, 2 years out, no kids. Her ex had been a surgeon who'd prioritized his career to the point where she'd essentially become invisible. I tried for a long time to make it work, she said. But you can't be in a relationship alone. Eventually, you have to accept reality. That's where I am now, Owen said. Accepting reality. Your situation is complicated. It is. If that's a deal breaker, I understand. It's not. I appreciate the honesty. Most people would just pretend they were fully single. They made plans to meet Sunday for brunch at a place called Maggie's Kitchen on the north side of town. By the time they hung up, it was past 10, and Owen felt genuinely energized by the conversation. Rachel came home at 1 in the morning. Owen was already in bed, but not asleep. He heard her move through the house, the particular careful quietness of someone trying not to wake their partner. She slipped into bed, and he felt her study him in the darkness, probably trying to determine if he was awake. He kept his breathing even, and eventually she turned away. Saturday afternoon, Owen drove to Redwood Grounds feeling calm and prepared. He dressed in jeans and a button-down, casual but put together. The coffee shop was busy with the weekend crowd, a mix of students on laptops and couples lingering over cappuccinos. Ainsley was already there, at a small table by the window. She looked like her photos, but better, real in a way pictures couldn't quite capture. She had blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, sharp green eyes, and a smile that seemed genuinely pleased to see him. Owen, that's me. Ainsley, the one and only. She gestured to the chair across from her. Already got my coffee, but the line's not bad if you want to grab something. He ordered an Americano, then joined her at the table. For the first 5 minutes, there was the usual awkward dance of first meetings, confirming they were who they'd seemed online, finding the rhythm of in-person conversation. But Ainsley made it easy, jumping into a story about a disastrous city council meeting she'd attended where 2 council members had nearly come to blows over a parking ordinance. The thing is, she said, laughing, they were both wrong. The whole argument was based on a misreading of the previous statute. Did you tell them? I tried. They ignored me because I was just a member of the public. Then, 2 weeks later, they had to void the whole vote and start over. They talked for nearly 3 hours. About work, about city planning and data analysis, and how the two fields overlapped more than people realized. About books and movies and the strange intimacy of online dating. She was easy to talk to, challenging in good ways, didn't seem to need him to perform or pretend. Finally, as the afternoon light began to shift toward evening, Ainsley checked her phone and grimaced. I have to run. Promised my sister I'd help her move some furniture. But this was really nice. Owen agreed. Do you want to do it again? Maybe something more than coffee next time? I'd like that. They exchanged numbers properly, moved off the app to actual text messages, and parted with the kind of hug that suggested promise without presumption. Owen drove home feeling lighter than he had in weeks. Rachel was home, working on her laptop at the dining table. She looked up when he came in. How was your day? Good. Productive. Yours? Fine. Caught up on some work. She paused. You were gone a while. Stopped by the bookstore, ran some errands. It wasn't technically a lie. He had stopped by Sutherland Books after coffee, but it was definitely an omission. Rachel nodded, accepting it, but he saw something flicker in her expression. Curiosity? Concern? That evening, she was more attentive than usual, sitting close to him on the couch while they watched television, reaching over to hold his hand. Owen let her, but didn't reciprocate with any particular warmth. She was noticing something had shifted, but couldn't quite identify what. Around 10, his phone buzzed with a text from Ainsley. Made it home. Thanks for a great afternoon. Already looking forward to round 2. He replied, Same. Let me know when you're free. Rachel glanced at his phone. Everything okay? Just a work thing. Another omission. Another small step toward the inevitable. Sunday brunch with Diana at Maggie's kitchen was different from coffee with Ainsley, but equally good in its own way. Diana was more reserved, took longer to warm up, but once she did, their conversation had real depth. They talked about her work with animals, about the emotional toll of sometimes not being able to save them. People think being a vet is all puppies and kittens, she said, working through a stack of blueberry pancakes. But there's a lot of loss. You have to make your peace with it. How do you do that? Owen asked. Honestly, I'm not sure I have. But you focus on the ones you can help. You do the math. If you save 90 animals and lose 10, you have to let the 90 matter more than the 10. That's a very rational approach to something emotional. Diana smiled. I've been told I'm too rational. My ex used to complain that I didn't feel things enough. I've gotten similar criticism. Maybe we're just efficient with our emotions. They finished brunch and walked through the small park near the restaurant, talking more freely now. Diana was divorced and had done the work to process it, which meant she wasn't carrying the kind of bitter baggage that could poison new connections. She was genuinely curious about his situation, about how he was navigating the open relationship. It doesn't bother you, she asked, that she's seeing someone? Not in the way you'd expect, Owen said carefully. I think the relationship was over before she asked to open it. The asking was just making it official. That's very philosophical, or very detached, depending on your perspective. Diana stopped walking and turned to face him. For what it's worth, I don't think you're detached. I think you're protecting yourself. There's a difference. They made plans for a proper dinner date Friday night, then parted with another promising hug. Owen drove home thinking about what Diana had said. Was he protecting himself? Maybe, but it felt more like simple honesty, acknowledging what was real rather than clinging to what was comfortable. Rachel was already home when he arrived, making dinner in the kitchen. She seemed agitated, moving with more energy than necessary. Where were you? She asked when he walked in. Out. Ran some errands. For 5 hours? Owen set his keys on the counter, studying her. Is there a problem? No, we usually tell each other where we're going. You told me you were seeing Brandon Thursday. I told you I was running errands today. Seems equivalent. Rachel's jaw tightened. That's not the same. How is it different? She didn't have an answer for that, or at least not one she was ready to articulate. She turned back to the stove, stirring something with more force than required. They ate dinner in near silence, the first truly uncomfortable meal they'd shared since this whole arrangement began. Rachel kept glancing at him, and Owen could see her mind working, trying to figure out what had changed. Finally, she set down her fork. Are you seeing someone? Owen considered his response carefully. They'd agreed to honesty. After all, I've been on a couple dates, yes. Rachel's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, hurt, anger, something that might have been fear. When? Yesterday and today. With the same person? No, 2 different people. She stared at him. You're dating multiple people? Isn't that the point of an open relationship? Freedom to see other people? I know, but I didn't think you'd actually do it. There was the unspoken assumption that had been there from the beginning. Owen leaned back in his chair, keeping his voice level. What did you think would happen, Rachel? I thought we'd be honest with each other. I thought we'd explore things but still prioritize us. I'm being honest. You asked if I was seeing someone. I told you yes. You're seeing Brandon. I'm seeing other people. That's the arrangement you proposed. But you're seeing multiple people, she repeated, as if that was the crucial distinction. So could you if you wanted. That's how open relationships work. Rachel pushed back from the table, standing abruptly. This isn't what I wanted. Then what did you want? She didn't answer, just grabbed her plate and took it to the sink. Owen watched her rinse it with shaking hands. Seeing the moment she realized the truth she couldn't yet articulate. She'd wanted permission to see Brandon while keeping Owen in reserve, emotionally faithful and waiting. The calculation hadn't accounted for him actually treating the relationship as open. I need to think, Rachel said finally, leaving her dishes and walking out of the kitchen. Owen finished his dinner alone, then cleaned up both their plates. Upstairs, he could hear Rachel moving around in the bedroom, probably pacing. He gave her space, settling in the living room with his book. Around 9, she came back down. Her eyes were red. I think we should close the relationship back up, she said. This isn't working. Owen closed his book, marking his place carefully. What specifically isn't working? This whole thing. You dating other people. It's making me uncomfortable. But you dating Brandon doesn't make me uncomfortable. That's different. Ow! Rachel faltered. It just is. I thought you'd understand. Help me understand then. She couldn't. Because the truth was that she'd expected asymmetry, freedom for her, faithfulness from him. Now that the situation was actually equal, she was discovering she didn't want equality after all. I want to go back to how things were, she said finally. Monogamous. Committed. Owen set his book aside entirely. This was the moment, he realized, the point where he could let her pull them back into the comfortable lie, where he could tell the truth they'd both been avoiding. Rachel, there's no going back. She froze. What do you mean? I mean the relationship we had is over. It ended when you asked to open it. We can't just reverse time because you don't like how things turned out. That's not fair. It's completely fair. You wanted to explore other options. That's fine. That's your right. But so is this. You don't get to call the whole thing off just because I'm not sitting at home waiting for you. Tears were streaming down Rachel's face now. I made a mistake. Can't we fix this? Owen felt a flicker of something. Sympathy, maybe, or just sadness at watching something die that had once been good. But sympathy didn't change the fundamental reality. Some things can't be fixed, he said gently. Some things, once broken, stay broken. So that's it. You're just giving up. I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. You asked to open the relationship because you wanted Brandon. You got what you wanted. But you also got consequences you didn't anticipate. Please, Rachel said, and the word came out raw. Please, Owen. I love you. I don't want to lose us. You should have thought about that before. It was harsh, but it was true. Owen stood, suddenly exhausted by the whole conversation. I'm going to bed. We can talk more tomorrow, but my answer isn't going to change. We should start thinking about next steps. Next steps? Separation. Divorce. How we want to handle this practically. Rachel made a sound like she'd been punched. Owen walked past her and up the stairs, leaving her standing in the living room. He'd expected to feel something, guilt, regret, satisfaction. Instead, there was just that same cool clarity. The equation had worked itself out. Now it was just a matter of following through. The next 2 weeks were tense. Rachel tried everything. She broke things off with Brandon immediately, told Owen she'd been stupid and selfish and wrong. She suggested couples therapy. She cried, apologized, tried to initiate physical intimacy. When none of that worked, she got angry, accused him of never loving her, of being cold and manipulative. Owen absorbed it all calmly, maintained his boundaries, and continued with his routine. Gym 4 times a week. Work. Dates with Ainsley and Diana. both of which were developing into something with genuine potential. He'd also consulted with an attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Vance who specialized in divorce proceedings. She'd reviewed their financial situation and given him clear guidance. Document everything. Be reasonable but firm. Don't let emotion drive decisions. The good news is you have no kids and you've been smart about keeping records, Patricia said during their second meeting. The house is tricky since you bought it together, but it's manageable. You should come out of this in decent shape. Owen filed for divorce on a Wednesday afternoon. He'd told Rachel that morning, given her a heads up as a courtesy. She'd stared at the papers he'd printed out like they were written in a foreign language. You're really doing this? Yes. What about everything we built? 6 years, Owen. Doesn't that mean anything? It means we had 6 good years. It doesn't mean we're obligated to continue something that isn't working. Rachel had oscillated between fury and desperation, but by evening, something in her seemed to break. She'd sat at the kitchen table, papers in front of her, and just nodded. I ruined this, she said quietly. I ruined us. Owen didn't disagree or comfort her. It was simply true. The divorce proceedings moved faster than expected. Rachel didn't contest anything, didn't fight him on the asset division, didn't make unreasonable demands. If anything, she seemed defeated, going through the motions with a hollow kind of acceptance. They sold the house, split the proceeds. Owen moved into a clean, modern apartment closer to downtown. Rachel got a place on the other side of Clearwater Heights with a friend who'd recently gone through her own divorce. Through all of it, Owen maintained his emotional equilibrium. He wasn't gleeful or cruel. He was simply practical, moving through the necessary steps with the efficiency he'd planned from the beginning. 3 months after Rachel had asked to open their relationship, Owen sat in Patricia's office, signing the final divorce papers. That's it, Patricia said, witnessing his signature. Once these are filed and the judge signs off, you're done. Congratulations. Thank you. Can I give you some unsolicited advice? Sure. Take some time before jumping into anything serious. You handled this well, but that doesn't mean it didn't affect you. Give yourself space to process. Owen nodded, but privately disagreed. He'd already processed everything that needed processing. He'd run the calculations, anticipated the outcomes, and executed the plan. There was nothing left to resolve. That evening, he met Ainsley for dinner at an Italian place called Rossini's on the waterfront. They'd been seeing each other consistently for the past month, and things had developed into something more than casual. She was smart, independent, didn't need him to be anything other than honest. Over pasta and wine, he told her the divorce was final. How do you feel? She asked. Relieved, he said honestly. Like I've closed a chapter that needed closing. No regrets. Not about ending it. Maybe about not seeing it coming sooner. Ainsley reached across the table, took his hand. You know you did the right thing, right? Some people would have just gone through the motions, stayed miserable. Some people aren't good at calculating outcomes. She laughed. There's that romantic streak I fell for. They finished dinner, walked along the waterfront in the November cold. Owen felt the weight of the past month settle and then lift, leaving him lighter. His phone buzzed with a text from Diana. How'd it go with the final paperwork? Want to grab coffee this weekend and celebrate your freedom? He replied, Paperwork's done. Coffee Saturday sounds perfect. Ainsley noticed him smiling at his phone. Diana, yeah, we're still figuring out what we are exactly. That's okay. You have time to figure it out. And he did. That was the thing about approaching life rationally. You didn't have to rush. You could take the time to make good decisions, to optimize for long-term outcomes rather than short-term comfort. They walked in comfortable silence, the city lights reflecting off the water, the future open and full of calculated possibility.
Thanks for listening.